It's the TCTV Training Show. The TCTV Training Show. We'll teach you how to shoot. We'll teach you how to light. Teach you how to mic and edit right. Each second Saturday there's a free training, from programs on display to focusing and framing. It's the TCTV Training Show. The TCTV Training Show. You're watching TCTV. It's the Training Show. The TCTV Training Show. Second Saturdays at 12 o'clock in Studio A.
Welcome. Hi, my name is Andrew Ebright. I'm a media facilitator here at TCMedia, and today we're going to learn a little bit about the animation app on the iPads. So a brief history of animation, because a lot of people don't know some of the fundamental elements of it, like frame rate and why that matters and that kind of thing. We're going to take a look at this ancient device. It's called a Zoetrope. And in the days before television, this is what people watched. A little spinning wheel with a bunch of repeating images in it. So why don't you all come up here for a second and take a look at this magical device called a Zoetrope. And whoops. That's okay. And Dan, I'm going to switch to the iPad camera to get a close-up of this. So this is a Zoetrope right here. What you have to do is kind of get down and look through the slats. And if anyone's driven on the freeway and they see those kind of the railings with the slats in them, and they drive by them and you see the fields behind it and all that stuff, it's kind of the same thing. So you just want to take a look through there.
It's something happening.
And you can see. Oh, try it the other way.
Oh. Because the ice cream, like, there we go. It adds ice cream instead of ice cream. I guess either way, being eaten or being put on.
Yeah, it's very conceptual. All right, let's try a different one here.
That's pretty cool. You
Check.
The horse.
The horse one. Okay, we have a special request. This horse one here.
You guys have to capture this story. It's very tragic.
But it happens every day.
This happens every day. Is there a stick on that?
Try either way.
So
Go fast enough.
Oh yeah.
So you can't
Getting
tell
kicked by a
when he
horse.
gets kicked and she
Sad.
does. And
Very
that's
upsetting.
It comes back to life.
This animation is very upsetting. Let's try a different one. So that one's pretty cool. I'm gonna do this one though because I made it, and I'm like that. So I made this one. It's a mouth and an eye, kind of.
That's super cool.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, is that an eye outside?
It's a mouth turning into an eye.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So anyways, those are some examples of what you can do with animation. In this case, Zoetrope is a fairly limited animation because you're limited by the space. Look at this. This is probably about 20 to 25 frames, which makes it about a second. Motion pictures are 24 frames a second. TV is about 30 frames a second. So think about that. If you're doing an animation, how many frames do you have to draw to create 1 second?
Oh my god.
A lot, right? 30 frames per second. So no one wants to do that. Professional animators don't want to do that. Oh, we can all sit back down now. Yeah, no one wants to do that. That takes forever. 30 individual drawings. Try doing that sometime and your hand will be cramped. It won't be fun. So if you notice, on actual cartoons, say from one end of the scale to the other of quality, high end being like Snow White or Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty or something like that, and the low end of the scale being like Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Most of the time, what they're doing is called animating on the two, which means that instead of doing 30 frames a second for TV or 24 frames a second for a movie, they will do 15 frames or 12 frames and just double them up. So instead of 24 individual drawings, you'll have 12 and just 2 of each of them. And the reason why that's easier is obvious. It's because you have to do half the drawings to get the same result, or a similar result, I should say. Now, when you're doing your own personal things, most of the time, most people aren't going to be working on like a half-hour-long TV show or anything more than a couple of seconds for the most part. If you look at an animated GIF on the internet, they tend to be, between 1 and 5 seconds long, and those are based off of images from a TV show or a movie most of the time. But back when I was a kid, most of them were drawings that people did, like little kind of pixelated hand drawings. So that's a little more analogous to what we're doing with this animation app. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you some examples of animations with a lot of frames and an animation with very few frames, and they're both the same thing, but you'll see what a difference it makes. So this one here, this only has 6 frames of animation in it. So we hit play, and you'll see it's kind of clunky looking. It looks like a box kind of sliding across the screen and then coming to a little halt. It gets the point across, but it looks cheap. It doesn't look very good. Versus 12 frames, literally just double the amount of frames in there, and it looks a lot smoother. It looks like you could publish that and it would be done. And then if you did 24 frames on that, it would be even smoother, but it would also be twice as much work to get it done. That was just kind of a brief thing on frame rate. And just to drive that point home, I even made this little animation of 30 frames per second on a video camera versus 30 frames per second in a drawing. Look how many drawings you have to make. It's a big difference. Video camera, you push the button and it takes all the stuff for you. Animation, you have to do all that stuff. I'm going to show you a couple example animations that I made in the animation app just to kind of show you what it can do. And then I'm going to lead you through an exercise on how to make this little cartoony octopus man walk around, and that'll kind of show you some fundamentals of animation in general. So this is, I traced my own face, and then I added this weird little cartoon body, and then I made all this stuff back there. And now I have a little guy running into a vortex of color. And that took about an hour to do, which is a long time for 4 seconds of animation. But in animation, you really want to reuse the same elements over and over as much as you can and whenever you can. So when you make characters, reuse them over and over again. Use them for all kinds of stuff. This is the little duck guy, or octopus guy. It's not a duck. And that's kind of the basic one. He disappears because I was a little sloppy with it. So that's the one right out of the animation app with no post-processing or anything done to it. But because we like to make pretty-looking productions and things that look nice, post-processing is something that applies even to the animation stuff. So that means like adding different color grades so that it doesn't just look kind of plain or like flash-based animation or something like that. It means changing the frame rate from being very high to a more cinematic one of 24 frames a second. And in this case, I also added a vignette just to kind of spotlight the character. And you can see this one looks way different, even though it's the same thing. And I added my production credit onto it. All the shows you see on the station with that are somehow affiliated with me. But that's something that's fun to do when you work on a project. Make your own little ending production credit. It really just kind of puts a stamp on it, you know. It's like, I made that. Ah. Okay. Oh, and this is a fun thing to do too, because not everyone's going to be wanting to make little animated characters and that kind of thing. Making animated logos is something I do a lot. So I made a video for my friend's band. It says Malaikat Dan Singa on it. But because, you know, you go into Final Cut and you put up a title for something, you can put in the basic titles, you have all the fonts, you have all that stuff. It gets kind of generic looking because you start to see the same titles over and over again and that kind of stuff. So I like to do a little hand-drawn animation so that you just get a little bit of variety and, you know, it looks cool. So anyways, let's get started on the tutorial here. So everybody grab your iPad, quit all the other apps that are open, and only open up the animation app because it requires all of the iPad. It wants the whole iPad to itself. If you don't know how to quit the apps, what you do is you double tap the home button so that happens, and then you swipe the app out of the way. In the top right corner, there's a plus sign. Tap on that, and you'll see there's new composition, new drawing, and import a clip. We want a new drawing. And if anyone is familiar with Illustrator or Photoshop or any kind of graphic-based software, you'll see most of the tools in here are pretty similar to that. So if you hit the arrow, you'll see that a whole little selection comes up of kind of copy, cut, paste, trash, group things together, move things through different layers so that you can have one object above another object. Or like, let's say you're drawing a body with arms. Let's pretend like that's a body, and let's pretend like this is some realistic looking arms. If I draw both arms like that, they're both on the same side of the body, but I want that arm to be on the other side, so I select it, and I go to Arrange, and I throw it all the way to the back, and now it is behind the body, so you can imagine it more dimensionally. But since I don't like any of that stuff, I'm going to drag over and select it, and hit the trash can, and just get rid of that. So, basic interface stuff. On the bottom, you'll see there's the arrow with a plus sign, the box with arrows in it, a plus and minus sign with a squiggly line, a pen nib, a pencil, a paintbrush, a paint bucket, a bunch of shapes, an eraser, and an eyedropper to select color. So what you would do is use the pencil and the pens and the bucket and the shapes to create objects and shapes, and you would use the arrow pointers to move them around, move their little points around to reshape them. On the far right, you have two color options, one for the outside and one for the inside of the color. You can see one has a color right on it, so it's easy just to tap on it, and you can see there's a different gradient of colors you can pick. Different saturation levels, so high saturation, no saturation, and low saturation. The black level determines how bright or dark it is, and the alpha channel is how transparent it is. A gradient will let you do more complicated kind of shading things. Right off the bat, the gradients, they look kind of garish. Green and pink like that is like, it looks kind of like a diamond or a gem or something. So you touch the color squares on the bottom, and you can see I'm moving them around. And that's where you can change the gradient color. And what I like to do to kind of create a round object is make them about the same color, but slightly different, one side shaded and one side highlighted. And then you can kind of get something that has a little bit of three-dimensional depth to it. The button next to it is called the stroke, and that is the outline of the object. So go to color, and you can add an extra layer there of color on the outside. So that's kind of the basics of how to get an object down there. I'm going to erase this one since it's just an example. So now let's go to the four main pen tools. You have the pen nib, the pencil, the brush, and the paint bucket. The pencil is probably the one most people will go for first. It's the most instinctual looking thing to draw with. It's a pencil. In this case, the pencil does not make straight marks. Like, it's not going to make a line that looks like that. It's going to fill it in, which is great if you want to make shapes quickly. And then we have undo and redo on the bottom left, so we'll undo that. The brush, on the other hand, will just make lines. It doesn't fill it in. So you can just keep kind of adding objects together that way. The paint bucket just kind of fills in colors. And oddly enough, it never fills in the whole screen. It only does little kind of snippets like that. But what's nice about that is that you can make, that's how I made that kind of flashing background color. So you can quickly make stuff like that. Although it doesn't provide the goal of filling in the whole background as you would expect it to do. There's other ways to do that though. Okay, so for the first exercise, or I guess the only exercise because we're just here for this thing, go to the stroke, the bottom right, the little square there, and pull the saturation all the way down and put the black level up to white. And then go to the color box right next to it and kind of do what I've done here. Make the two colors on the gradient be the same, but one brighter and one darker. Once you've done that, go to the pencil tool and draw yourself a little character. I like to draw little abstract shape characters because if you add a face to it, it looks like a cartoon character. And you don't have to work that hard to make something that looks kind of interesting. Let's see. I always like these kind of big butt octopuses for some reason. I think they look funny. So that's the body right there. If you're familiar with Photoshop or Illustrator, they have these things called layers, and the layers are like, imagine you have a bunch of transparent sheets of cellophane, and each one has a drawing on it, and because they're on separate sheets, you can move them around independently. That's what the layers allow you to do. So let's add a new one there. And now this layer is above this layer. I'm going to add some little eyeballs here. And because that layer is above the body layer, the eyeballs will always be above the body no matter what happens. Now let's make them black because cartoon character eyes look funnier when they're black. And make the highlight white. Change them to circular gradients. Okay, that's pretty basic, but we're getting somewhere. And why don't we go back to the body and cut a little mouth in there. So we'll pick out the body with the arrow tool, grab the little plus minus with the squiggly line in there, and we'll go to where about the mouth should be, right about there. So once you've done that, grab the arrow and just kind of pull it in. Whoops, we need more arrows. All right, go back to the plus minus sign and do one above it and one below it. And now we'll grab the one in the middle and pull that one and make a little kind of rudimentary mouth there. We'll kind of reshape some of this other stuff while we're at it. Cool. So now we want a new layer for the legs. And because the legs are going to be hidden by the body, we want them under the body layer. So now, here's where it gets kind of tricky. We want to draw the legs, but have the body and the eyes there for reference, but we don't want them to be on the same layer. We want to not be able to touch them at all on accident. So if you go to the layers button right at the top there, you'll see there are a bunch of like padlock looking buttons. Hit them all except for the bottom one. All right, so now no matter what, we can't pick this stuff out anymore. We can only draw underneath it because we're under it on the layer, and the other layers have been locked. So we'll erase that. So let's go back to the color and go to color instead of gradient. And what's a good color for legs? Some cool octopus leg, maybe kind of that green. That looks good to me. So we grab the pencil and we want to draw the legs up into the body so that we can move them around and extend them some. And we want it to be one shape. So little foot, little leg, up there, little back down, and then like that. That looks too thick to me, so It's probably the stroke that's doing that. Let's go to the stroke option, and you can see on the bottom there's a thickness by pixels, and we're going to go down to maybe 2. Yeah, 2 looks good. All right, back to the pencil. How many legs does an octopus have? 10, 20, 24, 25, 30? Anybody? 8? 8? Okay. We have 8. Let's say 8. So let's draw us 8 little legs, 4 on each side. 4 going that way. And that doesn't look good. And 4 going this way. I like little musical note looking legs. They look kind of jazzy. In fact, I don't like any of these legs, so let's start that over. Okay. So you can see the legs are all kind of all over the place here. Other than the fact that there are clear left ones and right ones, we might want to rearrange some of them a little bit. So I'll pull that one up front and maybe throw that one in the back. Whoop.
How are you doing that?
Oh, so hit the first arrow, and then you see on the bottom it says arrange.
Yeah.
And there's a double arrow, single arrows, and then a double arrow down.
Yeah.
The single arrows moves it by one object at a time. The double arrows throws it all the way to the back or all the way to the front.
Oh.
Like imagine
Okay,
the
yeah.
front is the top. So like, see how I picked out that front leg right there?
Yeah.
And I can throw it all the way to the back.
Cool.
Or just one at a time till it's more up in the front.
How do you rotate them? Not
Ah.
on there yet.
Do you see the little square with the arrows kind of pushing out? So that is the rotate and scale tool. It has a few peculiarities of its own that we'll talk about in just a second here. In fact, we're going to talk about that in literally a second because that's what we're going to do to the legs. All right, so a really important thing with animating, especially in this app, well, 2 important things. One is to save your work because the app will crash periodically. It gets very bogged down. You save by hitting the gallery button and it will return to this screen. It's good to do that every, I don't know, just kind of subconsciously every 5 minutes or so, because I've had people making really complicated animations that are really long and beautiful, and then it just crashes because they got up to 70 frames or something, and that's not fun when all your work just vanishes, so be sure to save. The other important thing is that you want to make sure that your character is pretty much done on the first frame, the design of your character, because if you start to duplicate it and start like changing the posture and stuff, and then you're like, oh shoot, I wish it was a different color, you have to go through to each frame and change the color. So you want to be pretty sure that it's how you want it to look right off the bat. This is just practice, so it doesn't matter that much.
I can't get the arm behind the body.
Huh. Well, I think that it might be because it's on a different layer. Open up the layers right there.
Okay.
And does yours kind of look like that? Like the legs are on the bottom layer, the middle layer is the body, and the top layer is the eyes?
No, but there's 2 layers. There's a body and then the arms layer.
Oh, okay. Is
don't
the
have
arms
legs yet.
layer on top?
Yeah.
Ah. Do you see these little lines right here?
Oh.
Use that to drag it to the bottom.
Oh.
So, on the bottom right, you'll see that there's a plus sign with 2 boxes, and a trash can, and 2 little arrows that pull up the cut, copy, and paste symbols. What we want to focus on now is the little duplicate frame button, which is that middle one. And now you see on the very bottom we have 2 frames. It's been duplicated. And now we want to grab the arrow. And just for example's sake, just to show you this feature, I'm going to grab all this stuff and move it out of the way. Whoop, if I can do it right. And do you see how there's kind of a ghosted image of the legs that's still there from this first frame? That is called onion skinning, which is basically how you move things in animation. There's different kinds of animation, but this style of animation is pretty much based on tracing. So in animation, a lot of people think that like, oh, drawing, you have to draw by memory and like be really skilled and all this stuff. Well, you do have to be skilled and all that stuff, but you're also tracing. So don't be afraid to trace. Anyways, where was I? Okay, so that's the onion skin, and that just gives you a reference of the previous frame. And the reason why that's important is because we're going to be moving these legs in a somewhat realistic fashion to look like walking. They can't just be going willy-nilly. You don't want to just remember, like, where was that leg last time? You want to be able to see it. So let's grab one of these right legs, go to the little rotate resize tool, and grab one of these little dots in the corner, and you'll see what happens is you can start to rotate it around. If you pull on the dot, it will start to change the size of it. And if you only want to change the vertical or horizontal, you can see there's 3 faint lines going through there. 1 vertical, 1 horizontal, and 1 diagonal. What you do is you move your finger over to whatever line you want to align it to. So the middle line, I can change the vertical scale. The middle horizontal line, I can change the horizontal scale. But let's put that back to where we had it. Undo, undo. Okay, so what we want to do is rotate the leg out a little bit and move it to the axis of its rotation, which is the top of the leg. And you want to do this for pretty much all of them in some fashion. Actually, I think I'm going to go back and forth, some of them going forward and some of them going back, because, you know, it's an octopus. Or is it a squid? And it can be kind of tricky getting some of the legs that are in the back. You just have to zoom in on them. This is one of those apps where if you don't fight it, it works great. If you fight it, then it's just very frustrating to use. So now that we've done that, we have a little 2-frame animation here. Pretty basic stuff, nothing too fancy. And as we learned before, the more frames, the smoother it looks, the better it looks. But even with these 2 frames, it kind of looks like a little, you know, it's a fun little jittery dancing guy doing the jitterbug. But we want more, so let's add another frame. And continue to do the same thing. Rotate a little bit forward, keeping reference on that last frame's leg position. Forwards and backwards and all over the place. And we have so many legs, it might be hard to keep track of where they all end up. See, that's already starting to look like a little cartoon. Duplicate that again. Keep those legs rotating. Never stop rotating the legs. Now you can also slide around on the bottom if you want to kind of scroll through your animation. Gives you an idea of what you're looking at. And I can already see I made that leg go off way too far, or farther than I wanted it to. So I'm going to pull it back a little bit. And then we can duplicate that again. Start pulling it back. Move them all around. And we're not going to do a complete cycle on this just because that would take a while, but typically you want it to end at the beginning if you want it to loop around smoothly. Or at the very least at the frame right after the beginning. So what you can do is open up these extra options on the bottom where you have copy and paste. And you can copy the frame and go to the end and paste it. So now, for all intents and purposes, it will have a frame similar enough to the first one that it'll kind of smoothly blend into it as it moves along. And you can see that front leg goes forward a lot more because it's funnier looking if it looks like it has kind of a human sort of walk going on. That's my opinion anyways. I don't know if that's how everyone feels about octopus legs. Okay. So that's kind of a basic thing you can do there. And of course, as you can tell, you can spend hours and hours and days working on the same project, refining it, and it does take a lot of time just to get the basic thing down. And it takes a lot of practice too, obviously. Oh, how does yours look? You want to bring it up here?
Show it?
Yeah, bring it up here.
It's not an octopus, but it looks really funny.
Let's take a look.
You can look at how many misses.
All right, we got a dancer here.
And she looks like she's twitching.
No, that's the latest dance. It's
Yeah,
the twitch.
And there's like a weird flower that showed up. I don't even know why. Like I could get rid of it. The bottom was, like, getting
Picking
bigger.
the flower.
Yeah. Her hand is some kind of dog.
And she's like lying there, and the flower like has turned to grow. Like she's like or something.
Yeah, she looks kind of like a zombie.
Yeah, I made her like boobs like really stand out.
There you go.
Purple-haired cream.
Does anyone else have one they want to show?
I haven't tried to play
It
mine
was supposed to
yet.
be walking, but I'll get better at that.
Yeah, you just need more frames in there. And a lot of it is, you know, conceptual, just thinking about how things look when they walk, how your legs move when they walk. Everything moves at different speeds, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh, I also tried to give her one beefy arm.
Just to kind of show another simple example of an animation. This is a little 9-frame one I made just to kind of speed animate. It's some kind of abstract shape with the eyes and teeth on it to identify it as alive. So, yeah, this one's just a little like blinking, chomping guy. It could be anything, doing anything for anybody. It could be talking. But the I guess the point is that I just copied the same thing over and over and moved those teeth around, and I moved the mouth up and down. Basic, really basic stuff.
How do you copy the first slide again? Because it looks really cool if it is smoother.
Oh, you want to bring it up here and we'll use it as
This
an
looks
example?
a lot better than mine.
It's not a competition. We're not, you know, there's no prizes.
Feels about-
Oh, wow, that looks
I
great.
know, it like
there's
looks
two
really
octopuses
good. Like it's like
the first one
professional.
doesn't-
I don't even know how you did
Oh,
all that.
okay.
It's like a psychedelic
So we'll go down.
octopus.
Octopus in the background is just like.
so you go
I feel like my
there.
character should be in there.
We'll go to the second
Twitching with
frame in the
them.
whole series.
She's like,
The second one?
Yeah, just because it's a
Too
variation of the first one.
Okay.
And what you could
Put
do
it back on
too,
the end.
yeah, you could also, if you wanted to do, it would take more time, is copy paste, like backwards.
oh yeah.
Oh.
Do
Um,
that so
I'll do
it
that.
goes
You want to do
back
that?
and forth.
Okay, yeah,
that.
give that a shot. Oh yeah. Just a quick word on the kind of graphics that this application uses. So there's two kinds of computer graphics. More or less, there's two kinds of computer graphics. There's vector graphics and there's bitmap graphics. So bitmaps are like JPEGs or pretty much any kind of photo kind of graphic. Anything that when you zoom in too close, it becomes pixelated. That's a bitmap. Vector graphics, on the other hand, are just mathematical calculations of shapes, meaning that they never get blurry when you zoom in on them. So in the app itself, you can make a drawing and be like, oh, that's too tiny. I need that to be 10 times bigger. You can make it 10 times bigger, and it will not lose any quality, which is why they chose vector graphics for this kind of thing. What that also means is that you can infinitely change the shape of the object that you have without changing its quality. Any distortions that you make will not change the smoothness of the line or the quality of the gradient or any of that important stuff.
He's a hunchback.
Oh, he's a freak now.
Weird.
which is really good for this style because it kind of makes it more like kind of two-dimensional claymation now, because now you're really kind of getting into it and sculpting the pieces.
Oh, he's got a booty.
Oh yeah, shaking his booty.
Whoa! He fixed it.
The arms go back and forth now.
Oh, nice.
It
For
looks.
some reason, the one in the background is moving.
It's
So now you can see, that looks kind of bad. I don't know why I added this big ol' extra mouth in there.
He just
But
grew
there we go.
something at the end.
Now he looks normal.
He's dancing. He's like, hey.
So because of that, one of the advantages of vector-based graphics is that you can make a curve that looks really, really smooth. And not only that, but you can manipulate the curve with these little nodes. So you can pretty much make any shape with a vector graphic. And what makes that cool is that you can do fun stuff like this. Whoops, except for that one's not the right one. You can do fun stuff like this. So I took a picture of myself and I stuck it in there.
Oh my god.
And then I put that on there and
Oh my god.
traced my own face, which I think looks pretty accurate.
It looks really good. I could tell it was you.
Oh, thanks. And then I took that and separated it and put all the pieces on their own layers. So you can see one layer has only the kind of base layer of my face, which is composed of, let's unlock that, all of these shapes of varying opacity. So basically, if you've ever done any painting or anything where you have the ability to put one color over another transparently, that's exactly what you can do in here with the color tools. The transparency level is adjustable, so you can really blend things together and make things that don't look overtly cartoony or digital, but kind of are blended together and have a nice kind of painterly appearance. Which I'm not saying this is exactly. This is a little South Park looking. But let's see. But this one here, this is more of kind of a scribble, and it's only 5 frames, and this was just a test to see if I could draw a face really fast in this app. But you can see it's a bit more painterly looking than the other ones were, mostly because of the different opacities of the different paints that are on there. Another fun thing you can do with the animation app is, because you want to be able to use the animation within a production or in Final Cut Pro or edit it in some way, you can use the green screen function of the green screen app, not this app, but if you put a green layer behind all of your drawings, you can throw it into the green screen app and eliminate the green area and have your little character be composited in with whatever scenery or other footage that you have.
Oh.
Which is exactly what this is. And that's more of a topic for the overall iPad production class. So there's a little guy walking along my windowsill.
That's cool.
Nothing real special going on there, but you can imagine if you wanted to make a whole little explanatory production that had little characters, you could have them in a little kind of world together. So this is another one that was really just a kind of a test of scribbling, and you can see, and I did this while I was watching TV. I just sat down for an hour and kind of hung out and did this. But you can see there's 75 frames, and it's already kind of slowing down the app a lot. But this is kind of like, I wanted to see if I could make a cartoony logo for the station. TCM, which is technically not what we're called, it's TCMedia. But again, just kind of back to another practical application of the app is you can make cool logos for your show. You can make like the credits in here or something like that. Or if you wanted to do little bottom thirds that look more animated, well, here's how you would do it. An easy way to do it that's kind of like finger painting.
Mm.
All right. Did anyone have any thoughts or comments or questions?
Can you use a stylus to draw the stuff?
Well, they make those styluses, but I've always found them to be very inaccurate because they have that kind of round nib on there instead of a pointy nib. And yeah, they suck. They don't work very well. Okay, well, I'll show you one more thing.
Oh my.
That is not in the animation app, but is related to it.
That's crazy.
And kind of related to all productions that you would do on the iPad or otherwise. I like to talk about grading footage. Pretty much no matter what we're talking about, grading your footage is a good thing to do. And what that means is essentially affecting the colors, the frame rate, the cropping, all the stuff that would make it a final product. So when you watch things on TV, they don't look like they are shot on a camcorder, even though a lot of stuff on TV nowadays is shot on consumer grade equipment or prosumer grade equipment. But even that equipment out of the box does not look finished. It looks flat. The colors don't look super punchy or accurate. So what you do is you use software like this. In this case, it's called Video Grade on the iPad. And it allows you to color correct your footage, as well as change the frame rate of your footage. So you know how when you watch a movie, it has a particular look, and when you watch a TV show, like a sitcom, like Full House, it has a particular look. Sitcoms tend to look very smooth and like kind of camcordery. It doesn't look cinematic, but a movie looks cinematic. It has kind of like a blur to it that identifies the quality of it as being cinematic. You can take the footage like this, which out of the box is at 30 frames a second and kind of overtly digital looking, especially the way that the body is bobbing around. It looks too smooth. It looks kind of fake that way. You can take that footage and put it into software like Video Grade or Final Cut Pro or any of that stuff. And aside from adjusting the color, the frame rate is now lower and it looks better. It looks better at 24 frames than at 30 frames. More professionally done, more finished. Which is exactly what this app is for. You can adjust contrast, vibrance of the color, color temperatures. There's kind of Instagram-like presets that are in here as well. And Instagram is kind of a dirty word when it comes to color correcting and a lot of stuff because they make everything one touch, which is true. It is kind of not a cool way to do stuff because it overly simplifies it. But in reality, color grading itself is still good. You should change the colors to look like something other than just out of the camera. Just don't make it look like Instagram. Like that, I guess that's the trick. So within this app, I just did some basic changes, but you can see the frame rate. You have options now, 29, 30, 25, 24. And if I put it at 24, you get to watch this beautiful circle graphic, which is my favorite graphic. And now you've saved a copy of this. That is automatically just looks more cinematic. Except for the part where he disappears. That doesn't look very good.
I liked your working with animating logos that you mentioned at the beginning. Were you going to mention anything more about that?
They're one of my favorite things to work on animation-wise because a lot of the hang-ups are like, what's this character going to do? Like, what's the story? What's going on? But when you animate a logo, the story is, look at this logo. And look how cool looking it is. So, yeah. Thanks for coming to Second Saturday. You can watch this on channel 77 on TCMedia, Thurston Community Media. And we hope to see you next time. Take care. Have a nice weekend.
We'll teach you how to shoot, we'll teach you how to light, teach you how to mic and edit right. Each second Saturday there's a free training, from programs on display to focusing and framing. It's the